Okay, we are live.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. So good afternoon and welcome once again to our webinars. So today we have myself and Mirko, but before we go there, pass to Paula so she can introduce this webinar to you. Paula.
So hello, everyone. Nice to meet you again in another webinar promoted by Agile Thinkers and RATAC, and this time also in partnership with Lean-Agile Procurement. Let's wait like 1 minute because I see many people coming in to the room. So let's wait 1 more minute so we can have all the people attending this webinar. Thank you for coming, the ones that are already with us. Okay, people keep coming in. Okay, so while I do the introductions, we can give more time for people that are not registered yet. So welcome everyone to the Lean-Agile Procurement webinar with Mirko Kleiner and Hugo Lorenzo. The webinar from today is about something that is not usual for us to talk about, Agile Procurement. And the main goal of delivering this webinar today here, not only in Portugal, but for everyone that wants to join us online, is to bring more awareness about the Agile team and break that thought that Agile is only for IT. It's not. For a long time. We have already talked about Agile marketing, Agile HR, Agile sales this year. So we bring now Agile Procurement. Business agility doesn't stop at the company's front door, is the theme for today. So I will start by introducing myself. My name is Paula. I work for RATAC and Agile Thinkers. I'm head of training and operations. I've been working for 11 years in training, and I really enjoy what I do every day because I feel the contribution I give to all the companies that work with us daily, choosing the best training plans, choosing the best coaching plans. So it's a pleasure to be here today doing what I do. So talking about the Agile Thinkers and RATAC Portugal, for the ones that don't know us very well, we have a wide range of services. We have a training portfolio with all the certifications you can search in the market, with the new one that we are bringing this year to Portugal, the Lean-Agile Procurement certification. We also deliver every type of services in consultancy, delivery, agile improvement, new ways of working in the company. So if you are looking for a company that needs help implementing agile practices, you should talk to us. We would really like to help you. We are also the founders and creators and organizers of the huge event Experience Agile and World Agility Forum. It just ended 3 weeks ago, and this is a huge event that for the first time happened online, and we had more than 600 people from 54 countries attending. So this is huge. If you haven't attended this event, you should do that next year from the 25th to the 29th of September. And that's not all we do. We just launched Agile Thinkers Academies in partnership with Landing Jobs and Boston University Agile Innovation Lab. If you don't know these academies yet, please go to our website, Agile Thinkers Academy, and get to know our new program for Agile learning. And finally, but not least important, we collaborate with several universities as some of you can see in this slide, delivering training programs for their students. So it's all about Agile with our brands, Agile Thinkers and Red Tech. So today, our speakers are Mirko Kleiner. Mirko is a thought leader in Lean-Agile Procurement. He's award winner of the CIPS Award, an international speaker, and that was he was with us in Experience Agile this year. He's an author, he's president of Lean-Agile Procurement Alliance, also co-founder of Flow Days, an Agile enterprise coach, and a certified Scrum trainer. I believe that you will find very useful to hear about Mirko's experience in Agile procurement. Hugo is not only our CEO of Agile Thinkers and RadTech, but Hugo is also a certified trainer in DevOps, Leading Safe, and Kanban, and more. But Hugo is an expert in new ways of working, an Agile enthusiast, as maybe the most enthusiastic people I know about Agile, and he's also the founder of Experience Agile Conference. So I believe that with these two speakers from today, we will have a very interesting discussion. So, and with these words, I would like to give the word to Hugo and Mirko, welcoming them and thanking mainly Mirko for being with us today. And please, guys, what can we tell to our audience about Lean-Agile Procurement?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. So thank you very much for having me and Hugo. So it's not that kind of webinar you might have expected with hundreds of slides. Hugo and I will just have a conversation about the topic of sourcing, sales, how this plays all together, and what are our experiences with Lean-Agile Procurement. We developed the whole approach the past more than 4 years now. And we're going to share some interesting insights, and even beyond that, that kind of we found a new definition for business agility, because up till now we have this trends around scaling and leadership in Agile, and just getting Scrum and Agile behaviors throughout the whole company. But with Lean-Agile Procurement, we go even beyond. So, yeah, Hugo, what is your interest in the whole topic?
Hey, Mirko. It's a pleasure being here with you, my friend. So we made the huge travels together on this Agile journey. The biggest topic is today, several companies that are leading and taking this transformation to a new way of management, I would say. They want to work with companies that foster and they really care about, all the procurement process and the way they drive all their sales. And it's much, much, much improved than it was before. So today, several companies, they don't work anymore. They don't want to work anymore with companies that are still driving. They bought tools and new tools and best practices and good practices, but they are not challenging what it really matters. And saying that, one of the biggest things is companies that are not driving the change or the improvements we are so looking forward to see in several organizations, other companies don't want to work with them anymore. So this is one of the most interesting topic here, is how to drive, because most of the, and Mirko, you have numbers for us. So you say some of the numbers to everyone. But what is happening is most of the percentage of sales in budgets are here in procurement and sales. So most of these things are quite interesting. And every time we see organizations leading, oh, we have agile teams. What does it mean? I don't know. Oh, we have Scrum. We have a Scrum Master, product owner. What does it mean? I don't know. I want to start next week a journey with a product owner. What should I do? I don't know. At the end, when they start figuring out how most of the things work, something didn't change. And usually is, oh, I just need to order some sticky notes and it takes 3 months.
Yeah.
What? So how much money did you spend in all those transformations and roles? And you wrote everything in advance. So big upfront roles, big upfront definitions, but it seems the behavior and the attitudes didn't change much. So Mirko, perhaps also for our audience and who is there at the office or at home, here it's 4:10 in Lisbon. We have people in Brazil, so quite early. Thank you so much for being here with us. Other people from Portugal, and perhaps we also have people from Switzerland and other locations. But Mirko, how did it started? So all this lean agile procurement, we met at Scrum at Scale, we met at Scrum courses, we met at Scrum gatherings. We fly everywhere, but how did it started? Lean Agile Procurement. Tell us the story, please.
Yeah, so that's a nice one. I never expected to end up in procurement, to be honest, and it's definitely not the place to be on one hand. On the other hand, it's very fascinating. So first of all, maybe you mentioned the numbers. So, the thing with Agile is we are always looking for business impact, don't we, right? So we want to have happier employees, better products, faster go-to-market and all that. And a lot of companies, if we support them as Agile coaches, the teams, it's a learning curve. The impacts follows later. It's like, but in procurement, and sales, they're responsible for up to 80% of the company's revenue, right? And with what we are doing, and we talk about that later, we increase time to market by 200, 400, 800%. So really, like Jeff wrote in his book, double the work in half the time. It's not double the spend in half the time, but more effective. Yeah, you have a big library. Awesome, thank you. So how did it all started? I mean, with Flow Days, it's a similar consultancy as Hugo's Red Tag, and we started to focus to Agile and business agility several years ago already. So we thought about all these principles are valuable to any function, to any level of the organization. And during that journey, I remembered my time as a software vendor, where we went through this huge bids and proposals, multi-million-dollar proposals that took us ages. It's really wasting time to create these proposals, building up prototypes, not knowing if you're gonna win. And then you sign a contract, and we tried to sell back in the 2000s, we tried to sell agility and the way of working, but it was very hard because the buyer side didn't understand what we want and what it is and so on. So more than 5 years ago now, we came across procurement teams while a transformation, while an engagement. And I told them the story, and said, well, we are fine if we have to source goods, right? Things off the shelf. But if it comes to complex sourcing cases, so innovation, capabilities, Agile teams, we do not have the right approach. So we concluded it's kind of a lose-lose situation. And so we went, we did some research. Is there anything valuable in the Agile community? But there wasn't. Surprise, surprise. There was somehow there was nothing. So we started, really greenfield. And instead of looking at the current way of working in sourcing, we just said, okay, let's reinvent the wheel. So what if we have just one day to do the whole sourcing? What we need to do? And Yeah, so we started to apply common agile practices like, hey, if we need to decide, we need to co-create an agile contract. If we need to co-create the proposals, we need to have all the right people together, right? And out of that, the whole approach, the lean procurement canvas, evolved and developed. And in the meanwhile, we have, a global movement already. And even more important than that, I think what we predict is currently we are working with procurement. But if we think an agile organization fast forward, we will end up with a team of teams organization, right? There we go. Thank you. And so similar things that we thought earlier, or similar concept like DevOps, in the early days of Scrum, we had the development team, and then later on, they handed over things to operations. We started to combine those. And what we are currently doing is we think this fast forward and say, hey, why an agile team shouldn't become able and also capable to source their products and service and partners themselves. So it's a huge mind shift in procurement ongoing. We have cases, for example, in New Zealand, where procurement folks start to coach the agile teams so that they could source themselves. It's really fascinating. So long story short, interesting topic. It seems like a niche. From my perspective, every product owner, every Scrum Master should know about it. It's just another capability that we need in any of the agile teams. And for the procurement people, it's something they need to do the shift to become more an enabler for the business and the agile teams than just being a service and doing everything as they do currently.
And Mirko, thank you. One of the things that usually make me think when us as advisors and consultants, and we see senior managers or the C-suite preaching, oh, we have agile teams and now we do this and then we do that. But later they hire or they subcontract entities to evaluate the sourcing process to buy the next DevOps tool.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Definitely not. I mean, if we, again, if we really believe in empowerment of the people, in that the people at the core of the product, then we also need to hand over or empower them in such questions. So why they shouldn't be able to source their tools themselves, why they shouldn't become enabled to extend their team with third party, right? And of course, there are good reasons from a compliance point of view. There are governances in place and so on. There are some certain good practices in procurement, but all of that we can learn. Similar to what we did in the past with operation. We bring in such a person who has these capabilities, and they could become a true cross-functional team, not just a delivery team. In quotes, right?
So I would consider in several cases, the team should be empowered to decide whatever we need. So yeah. I worked several years ago with an organization that we have a credit card, and that credit card, the team could buy whatever tools they wanted till $50 or $100. So we buy, we tested, we try, we learn while we were doing, and then we can decide if we want to have a user contract, an enterprise contract, or it's just good for us for now, and perhaps later we'll quit and we'll do other things. But for other reasons, and you just said compliance for and companies that are really, really huge with thousands of employees, for perhaps several things, they will need to decide or define a couple of things for everyone.
Yeah.
But in this case, Lean Agile Procurement also have a strategy on how to handle that, okay, before you go, for example, to start doing agile contracts or anything like this. Because if you start making the contract, but you don't go into the process we have, most probably this contract will not work as you wish, which is something different from the previous or from the past or the recent past, that something didn't work for you, and perhaps this will not help you either. So Mirko, do you want to say something more about this, please?
Absolutely, yeah. And even worse, what you just explained, it could happen that procurement or compliance officer or anybody of those guys becomes your bottleneck because they don't understand what you want and why are you doing that? You're not following our rules, and so this endless discussion starts. So what we usually do is just imagine there is a new initiative, just a new business case come up. I mean, that came up, and in the traditional way of thinking, somebody gets the project to gather the needs, and then they hand it over to procurement. They find the best partner or product or service provider. And then later, and they also negotiate the terms and conditions and co-create the contract. And then later on, the internals, together with the partner, almost never got involved in the whole process, need to work on the conditions. They had no stake in it at the beginning. So in the worst case, they are not that lucky to have an agile contract unless they would love to work agile together. So what we do in this case is, and that's why we started to work on the buyer side, so on the side that has the power to change the frame conditions, and we inspired those guys. Oh, sorry.
Siri wished to do
Siri wanted to join the conversation, sorry. So we inspired the procurement people, the business people, the business stakeholders, the sponsors, even the leadership team to say, hey, listen, here something is totally wrong. Because what's the main pain point? First of all, I mean, there are three main pain points. First of all, the procurement processes take far too long, right? So it's on average 6 to 12 months. In a better case, it's just 5 to 6 months for huge complex products and services they are looking for. So we are not talking about peanuts, not this $50 you mentioned. It's about $1 million, 10 million worth it, or even more. And and why is that? Why are we so slow? Because procurement, but also the legal guys and compliance, they feel responsible to minimize risk for the company, right? So it's an important aspect for the company. But the people that know the product, the vision, the whole delivery are not really involved in that. So what we are doing basically, just go back to the initial analogy. What if we have just one day? We bring those people together from the start. We form an agile service or product delivery in the best case with the idea, and we empower the team not just for delivery, but also taking ownership about the sourcing. Now that they are able to do that, we put people from procurement, from compliance, sometimes even lawyers to the team to support them in the initial step, right? So that's not really magic. I mean, that just makes sense. But the team does also decide on who are the most probably best products, what are the best or the vendors we want to look at, you know, in a traditional way, you would send back and forth proposals. That's not really agile, looking at documents. So what we do instead is we invite them. We want to co-create the proposals with the vendors, similar to a PI planning, right? It's just, we don't have the contract yet. We invite 2, 3, 5 vendors, whatever makes sense in your context, and co-create together all at once, simultaneously. Don't forget, those are competitors. Co-create the proposals and also improve a drafted agile contract together. Also that, I mean, that we have the best conditions to collaborate, that we have this alignment from the start, where we are heading to, and also to identify cost drivers, which is also an aspect of procurement. They are keen on to keep the cash out as minimal as possible. To have all these discussions, what are cost drivers? What your solution fits the best? Do we even adapt the needs? Need to adapt the needs, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. Hugo, sorry, we have a question, if you don't mind. So we have a question from Rui Saraiva. It's in chat in case you want to read at the same time I say the question. So how to do a contract with a partner to work in an agile way without fixed scope, fixed price, strict SLAs and penalties. Procurement wants to have leverage on the partner. This has been my pain here. T&M is the only way. Value-based contract. Thank you, Rui.
Yeah, very good question. Hugo, would you like to start, or should I explain an example? Now you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Yeah, okay, got it. I can just give one or two examples. So they are not exactly related, but it's the analogy, it's similar. So several years ago, I was delivering a certified Scrum course, and there was a guy at the training that asked me, look, I'm doing a product for the militaries, and how should I use Scrum? Because, you know, you just define sprint by sprint. You don't know anything what you will be doing in 2 or 3 months. You just know what you're doing this week, and perhaps by the middle of the week, you will know what you're going to do next week. We can do that. We cannot do that because we have so many legislation, rules, everything. And I said, how did you start the product? Well, I don't recall. I wasn't there before, but mostly our products comes from projects. Then when we are doing something to a customer, which is something new and take several years, we never accomplish the deadlines. It's a mess, but at the end we get the product. That product becomes our product, our new product, because it didn't exist before. And say, yeah, and when you started, but just imagine when you started, did you put all variables at the same time? Did you put everything at the same time? When the Wright brothers made the first airplane, did they put all the conditions there? Was everything inside? No. So sometimes in here, it's also related to the question of Rui. Yeah, so when we started to explain how Agile was different from other ways of working, we said, well, here you fix the scope. Then because of the size of the scope, this is how much time and people perhaps you need to deliver this. And because of this time and people, you have this cost. So let's invert. Give me first, how much money do you have? Oh, with that money, these are the people you can buy. Oh, you don't like, oh, you think they are not senior. Well, that money doesn't pay senior people. Oh, you want better people, so you need to have more budget. Now you have the budget, now you have the people. These are the fixed. This is fixed. Now let's define what can we deliver to you in this time with these people that pays 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 months of their work. So now let's define what you can deliver. The thing is, we don't put the variables, all of them, at the same time. We evaluate, we progress, we increment. So in the procurement process is mostly if we put a contract to do what? What is the goal? What is the outcome? Oh, and service level agreement. Oh, and if we start adding more and more at the end, it's not a contract anymore. It's just well, it's a contract, but it's kind of people just trying to check, 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 check. Then the outcome, usually it's not what people expect. It doesn't happen all the time like this. So, but Mirko, by the way, guys, Mirko was at the Experience Agile conference. It went on the 29th and 30th of September. Mirko made a great talk. By the way, you can see it at the Facebook or in YouTube. In our channel, you can see it there. His talk about sourcing and about collaboration between vendors. So that would be a great topic. And also, we will discuss that in our course on the 18th to 20th of November. It's 3 days. It's online. It's 4 hours a day. So you can also work the other hours for your company. So it's just 4 hours. And you'll discuss also your case studies. So if you have your questions, if you have your own dilemmas, we will take care of it. We'll discuss with you and we'll give you some strategies. But again, it's to try and experiment. And also we have white paper at the end of this webinar we're going to offer you. So Mirko, what have you say to this about Rui was asking to us?
Very good question. And thanks, Hugo. It's exactly what I usually ask the guys, if the question comes up, well, what does it cost? And I say, what is it worth it, right? So if we don't do our homework at the customer side, from a business case perspective, sometimes I do work with, we recently sourced an ERP system in just 2 days. We need to figure out what is it worth it to spend, right? To invest. It's an investment. Look at sourcing like an investor. So that gives us a frame, right? So if we don't have 10 millions, we don't need to look at SAP as an ERP system. But that doesn't answer your question, Rui. So what my experience with procurement is that they just started to figure out what is an agile contract, right? And there are two dilemmas. They are looking to minimize risk, and the best way they know about that is to do it is a fixed price contract. And then on the other hand, we have the supplier side who are asking for time material contracts all the time, and both are wrong. Because time material is one potential agile contract, but it's not the only one, right? So you could go for outcome-based contracts within fixed time, fixed budgets. You could go target-based. You could go challenge-based. I wouldn't recommend to pay per story point or something like that. But what is important is you need to have this conversation with all the parties internally and with the vendor, how we deal with risk, right? What if we are late? What if we run out of budget? And then find your way around that. So how we typically do it, my preferred agile way, contract is we set the boundaries in terms of budget and time. We don't know the budget or the estimation, so we just select the vendors based on the initial guess of the budget, and then we need to work out together what is really the expected cost roof. And then within this budget, with the estimation on a bigger scale, we start to co-create an agile roadmap where we could together, the vendor and the supplier together could agree on intermediate objectives where we break down the vision into actionable business objectives, key results, the way how we might understand when these objectives are achieved, And we even co-create metrics, how we measure that our performance, our happiness, our impact, and so on. So all that we co-create together with the vendors in such a big room event as an appendix to the Agile contract. I hope this answers the question. So there is not the answer, there is not the Agile contract, there is no silver bullet, but we definitely we have solved the way how we get there, right, with Lean-Agile Procurement, and how we can get there in a more collaborative way and less of a take it or leave it situation. This is, I found this template for an Agile contract and you need to agree on it. I don't know. It's a proposal. Let's talk about it. What doesn't work? What would work? What should we need to improve? And that's why we have a lawyer there, right? And we immediately update the contract. You know, just imagine your ambition is you go into a workshop and the ambition of the workshop is at the end of the workshop, we're going to decide and we're going to sign the contract in the best case. So that, and we have set up the Agile team together with the vendor so that we could continue working next day. That's our ambition. And you need to, design your way backward. What are preparation steps to make that possible?
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because there is also one thing I would trigger. One of them is some of the techniques people are using, and usually they are not making better to make Scrum to work or whatever. But you can use it also in Lean procurement or in procurement, let's say in the department, which means you can use a design thinking workshop. This is the product or this is the need. Why do we have this need? Where it comes from? Perhaps sometimes it's just find out that that need should not exist anymore, because we are in the 21st century, 2020, and perhaps that need should not be there anymore. Perhaps it's just a question that this doesn't make much more sense. Or perhaps the need is not fulfilled with what you have in the market. Perhaps the thing is, traditionally, procurement and shared services, usually it's kind of, they don't trust anyone. They got a lot of power because there were a lot of waste. There were a lot of losses inside of the companies. And someone said, let's make a huge department. Now we buy for everyone. We reduce all the costs. And sooner or later, they forget that some of the products they buy, they suck. And customers complain about it, but they don't listen. And then they say to providers, to the vendors, once a month on Wednesdays from 11 to 12, I answer your calls. So what do you expect the vendor will do to you or to your company afterwards?
Yeah, very good question. So what we are doing, and I'll give you an example of quite a special clause in the Agile contract we usually use is, there are these concepts of exchange for free, money for nothing, and all this stuff. I don't believe in bonus and benefits and penalties, because if we take the Agile values seriously, right, then we wouldn't treat a partner this way, that we give them a bonus. I usually ask them, do your internal people get a bonus? I say, no.
Your network?
Just the externals, but they are part of the same Scrum team. So what? If it comes to a penalty, you do reduce the salary of your people's, of your internal people as well. No, we don't. Well, that's kind of unfair. So with this discussion, we usually have a very special clause. You don't have to, that both of the parties, buyer side or customer and vendor, could stop the partnership at any time without any costs. So just to give you a flavor, how strong we believe in the agile values. And this is interesting, what then happens, because both parties need to care, right? So it's no more, oh yeah, what, like you mentioned, on Wednesday, this half an hour I have time for a call. It's a must-have call. I need to do it. I was told so. I'm a service to the organization. No, it's the product owner and the team who make sure that we have on several levels, on a team level, on the account management level, even on the C-suite, that we have exchanges iteratively to talk about our collaboration, our next steps, where we are, our current successes, and so on. So what we initialized with Lean-Agile Procurement is not just the sourcing, it becomes a real agile partner management kind of, right? So it's much bigger than that. How do you, ask yourself, how do you treat your partner, your vendors? What if the partnership ends? How bad, I mean, it's just what I experience, how bad the vendors are in organizing a proper phase out, right? A handover. And the opposite, how bad the customer side is if it comes to an end of the contract. Usually it's just, I don't know, what's your experience on that, Hugo?
Usually I see some vendors trying, it's everywhere. So I see organizations trying to squeeze vendors, and then they want this as high quality. Quality, it should be intrinsic. It's not discussable. And if you need to discuss in advance, not after you sign the contract. You should define quality much right in the beginning. Yeah. At the other side, I see vendors trying to say, oh, we are agile, but we don't know a value, a principle. We don't even understand why it is. We just heard about this and this and that. But why does that matter? What we are trying to do here. And we have a great question from Rafael Bastu, which what we're trying to do here is customer collaboration over contract negotiation.
Yeah.
So, and Rafael asks us how you deal with competition between vendors, in particular, when you are looking for a solution where you don't know exactly what you're looking for. Well, perhaps you know the problem, but the solution is highly dependable on the solution each vendor can develop or deliver. Well, one of the things is Mirko and I, we love when we have the Lean canvas, our Lean-Agile Procurement canvas, and they put their strengths, their weakness, and they start to understand what is my highest value, what is his highest value, and combining, sometimes we say, this is a better product that you have to offer you, and we can take care of all the integrations and we can make your life easier.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I don't know if some of the audience understands what is the prisoner dilemma, but the prisoner dilemma, it's when two guys get arrested, they put it in two different rooms, and then they try to make one of them to talk. And the only way they get with the minimum sentence, the minimum issues, is if none of them breaks. And because they don't trust each other, one of them will leak, and then one of them will lose for sure. So the thing is, the prisoner dilemma, it's quite applicable here in these situations. Companies don't trust vendors. Some vendors don't trust companies. Well, some of them trust, some of them don't. The thing is, if you don't trust, don't do business with them. Only do business with who you trust. Only do business with who believe in what you believe. And of course, that has a price to pay. But if the price, sometimes the price is low, but the efforts, and that doesn't come in KPIs and whatever, it's so high. And it's so brand, customer, it's so high that cost. But the thing is, my department just did what you asked me. All right. You asked for these sticky notes, and this was the best sticky notes we had, because it's the cheapest one. And now they are always coming down, and you cannot use it, just throw it away. So you're not even using it. So it's just waste. But these guys, they are done. They check mark. their KPIs, amazing. So this cost $3, now we bought for $1. So we reduced 66%. How amazing are we? So KPI, check, I will get the bonus on that. So when you have this kind of benefits, people will never be willing to customer collaboration over contract negotiation. But Mirko, how you see this question from Rafael about competition between vendors and how can they collaborate in a potential solution, perhaps even better than what they expected?
Oh, it's such a great question. Thanks, Rafael. We actually had that in several of our cases. So just imagine we have the multiple vendors in the same room, competitors, and we do just, instead of having a 1 hour pitch, which is just a traditional way of doing things, we reduce that to five minutes each, because we don't believe what you're telling. I mean, we have trust, but it's more the way you work and the way what you do, creates trust. So we had the case, for example, that one of the vendors said, yeah, we are super agile. We love to collaborate, even with our competitors. And throughout the workshop, it turned out they were unable to even do relative estimation. So just imagine one of our exercises is we give them 50, 60 user stories estimated. Now we have half an hour. And then you see, if they're agile or if they're not, if they're just talking agile, or if they are agile and know all the practices and such. And it's not that we are just looking for agile vendors, they still could win if they don't know the practice, but it's the matter how they react on that, right? So if they come up and say, very honestly, I'm so sorry, I have no idea what to do with this relative estimation. Could you please explain it? We are fine. But if they try to cheat and just do anything and it becomes obvious, they're the wrong partner, right? With this example, I said, the one vendor who said, yeah, we love to collaborate. They never, ever collaborated with one of the other competitors in the room. And we made that immediately a topic. We talked to them and said, hey, initially you told us the A, and now you're behaving B. Why is that? And they had no answer to that. No good. So to a much bigger extent of your question, so if there are two competitors, let's imagine they could collaborate. They are competitors, but they have overlapping capabilities or services, and we are not yet sure with which one to go. So what's the approach? So maybe we start the first 2-3 sprints with both of them, right? Maybe this is we let them form an alliance, right? Instead of one of you will win, the other loses. Maybe it's better to run with both. So that's another old way of thinking, that if we do source, there must be this single vendor that has the perfect product, the perfect people, and they're available now to the cheapest price. We had several cases. In one of the cases, for example, the cross-functional team decided to go with the product from vendor A, and with majority of them, their team, but they also asked from vendor B, another guy who was, just a lovely guy, very experienced, hands-on, to join the team as well, right? How crazy is that? And we just brought them together and said, could you imagine? I mean, it would be our wish. And we just made it work. I hope that answers your question, Rafael. Great question.
We have another question from Gilberto, right? Oh, Paula, sorry.
Oh, no problem, Hugo. So Gilberto Martins asks, one of the most complicated challenges, sorry for my dog, is selecting and developing services vendors in national territory and abroad. Then minimizing risk versus the agile process is not a dilemma. I can ask again, sorry, Mirko. One of the most complicated challenges is selecting and developing services vendors in national territory and abroad. Then minimizing risk versus the agile process is not a dilemma.
I think the agile way of finding the right partner is the only way to go in such a scenario, because we are iterating, and just the fact that we are iterating with several partners at the same time is minimizing risks. That's the only way I could imagine how to do that, right? No matter if they're abroad or in the same country. But I'm not sure if I got the question right.
At least I would also just add here, all these agile way of thinking, do it in small teams, network of people getting together. If things need to be big, it's because of a network and not because of a team with hundreds of people. Adapting to that new reality is a challenge. But all these agile way, incremental, and it's about risk management. So the dailies, it's about not just synchronize, but validating if we are on track, validating what is stopping us to achieve what we defined a couple of days or hours or weeks ago. So all this agile, it's about all this continuous improvement is there, but every day, and it's done by everyone. It's not specific of a department, of a person. It's not dependent of anyone. Anyone can do this every day,
And
anytime.
becomes part of the new DNA, right? And if you look at sourcing from a bigger perspective, let's imagine a business case is worth it to spend 100 millions, right? Traditionally, if a company is about to spend 100 millions euros, dollars, whatever, then you would end up with 10 times bigger contract because the risk is huge. So what we do with a more agile way of sourcing is, okay, in this 100 millions, what are the most promising hypotheses that we're gonna approach first? So maybe it's worth it to spend 1 million or 100,000 to test that as fast as possible and look for the return, for a much earlier return. Because what a lot of people don't get, I mean, in our days, it becomes more obvious, speed is the new currency for procurement and also for sales, by the way, for the suppliers. So if we are getting faster to market, not just to contract, but faster to market with new ideas, the return is much bigger than if we could negotiate just the blood out of suppliers and decrease the costs by 10%. That's not in a relationship anymore if we could spend 10 millions and get 100 millions on return, right? We don't care if we spend 10 or 11 millions if we get the return earlier and if we are first in market or etc. So I think we need to look at procurement from a totally different angle than we do it today. Today it's much more of a service, an internal service, right? Please source something for us. It's because we don't have trust into the organization. There is this term maverick buying. The business just is wasting our money. Well, we need to rethink that, in my opinion, a bit. I'm not saying that procurement is useless, but what we need to understand is 90% of the procurement sourcing cases are currently digitalized, right? So procurement as a profession is at risk. So they need to reinvent themselves, not tomorrow or day after, now. And what is left is the most complicated, innovative, complex sourcing cases where they currently have no tools. So I would like to invite the whole Agile community out there to support sales and procurement, because on one hand side, because they have capabilities Agile teams need. I'm really sure about that. On the other hand, we could all take benefit, or both of us, also the Agile teams. If you get empowered to do more of the sourcing yourself with their support, everything becomes much smoother.
And another thing that is good for us to clear here. So today, we are not saying the classic old-fashioned way of doing things. It's, of course, today there are much better ways, right? But even though for almost 100 years we were delivering procurement the way kind of it is, then over the last 20 or 40 years, we had companies making their business models, building platforms where other companies put the bid, then they deliver the bid and the intent to the vendors. The vendors apply, then they send to others. All this is it was a business model. So now what we are thinking is in an agile way of doing this. But between these, let's say, classic and this agile, you can also find something in between. Okay, and we'll give you some clues and we'll give you some strategies and some techniques over our course by the 18th to the 20th of November. But understand that sometimes you say we cannot be this anymore, and sometimes, but we are not here yet, or perhaps we don't even want to go there. That's okay. You can be something in between, but figure out that you find better ways. You make a workshop. Can you just imagine? You put your vendors, you do a workshop, you explain why do we need, what are we doing? These are our most frustration. This is, so you explain to them, you collaborate, you do a design thinking, you diverge, converge, you facilitate, then you do an open space, then you listen what they're saying, you understand what they have to offer you. It will be transparent, so everybody will be there talking to each other's. You can see what they're saying. Competitors are there also participating. So we see a lot of advantages on this process of doing these things. And someone said, trust is key, but trust is very hard to develop. It is. And when you break trust, usually it doesn't come back again, and when you buy from a vendor that breach something, that trust, but in the next bid he wins again, yeah, it's hard to swallow that, but that's what happened. So if you get to collaborative, you get much more benefit. Yeah. Of course, this is not the only way to tackle the same issues. Sometimes it is something in between. We have another question here, but before we go to the other question, also remember that we have Agile Sales, and I think I have the book here. Here it is. So we have Agile Sales. We have in 1 week or 2 weeks, Paula can give you more details. We also have Agile Sales. So if your sales are struggling in this, all with this pandemic situation, and sales is also important to you, perhaps procurement and sales, you wanna hear something about that, and perhaps your people want to join, and your sales force would like to join to see better ways of collaborating instead of just reading the script and saying to customers, this is what we have for you. If you don't like it, find another service provider.
I would like to add something, because a lot of people get confused. I'm not in procurement. I don't like the sourcing processes, and I would love that this is done in a more agile way, or I would prefer to have an agile contract. What is interesting though about the canvas we developed and the whole approach, you need to ask the exact same question if you're gonna set up new agile teams. right? So what we solved is just the most complex variation of it. It's an agile team where the product is uncertain, the team members are uncertain because they are partially or completely outsourced, and we need to find them and then set it up and do the whole commercials around it and contract, etc. But what you also can do, and just as inspiration, you can use the totally same approach to set up or improve your existing setup of any agile team internally. And sometimes I suppose some of you are working for bigger corporates. It's even harder or as hard to source an internal team than a team of externals. So just as inspiration, Hugo made some advertisement for our class. This is a great opportunity, not just for the procurement folks, but also for your agile coaches, product owners, scrum masters, how to set up an agile team in a correct way. And you can bring your case and walk through your case and apply all the practices we use, the good practices we use in our training. We spend almost one day around that. Yeah, enough advertisement.
No, one more question from Prasad. So can procurement be Lean Agile without the strategy being Lean Agile? What could procurement do if the strategy is not Lean Agile?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So it remembers me the quote, what the country can do for me and what can I do for the country. So for me, it's like a chicken egg problem, right? You can wait till the perfect world has evolved out of something, or you just start to improve the field you can have an impact in. So if you're working in procurement, start to experiment with the principles and practices. For example, with Lean-Agile Procurement and parts of it, it's just a toolbox. And start to inspire your people in strategy. For example, we often start to create a portfolio, basically it's a Kanban board with all the sourcing cases in procurement, because this they leak of transparency. And so they have an internal agreement. That's the way we work. That's our priority. And then they could start to invite the business and have an extended conversation about priorities. And then over time, they might find out, it would be good that some of you guys is in the business portfolio discussions, because it ties into each other. And then later on, they might find out, hey, by the way, what are your business objectives? What are ours? And could we also align those, right? So it really depends what is the standing of procurement. Sometimes it's strategic, it's on the top level, and they become the driver for all this. And they could even influence the strategic process. And sometimes they are just on a second or third level, and they just need to, start to inspire the others by improving and doing their homework first. I don't know, what's your experience, Hugo, on that?
I would say if strategy is not Lean Agile, so procurement will have a lot of work because they will want things that nobody needs, perhaps. So there will be a lot of waste. They don't have a lean thinking. They don't fix problems. They perhaps implement the IVR system. So where press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 25, and people, because they don't fix problems. So having a Lean Agile mindset, it's a must. Procurement, it's really important to be expediting what is the need. In some ways, it should be centralized. In other ways, it should be decentralized. But also always remember that is not the silver bullet. Honda, the car, well, they do a lot of things. They do boats, engines for boats, motorcycles, cars. But this example is from the car. Honda built a car on the Jazz, and the car was built from inside out. Okay, so from the customer perspective, where are the shaft, the everything, it was precisely defined, uh, the consumptions, everything, the wheels, the side, everything was taken care for a city, and how to make a driving um, a, a nice experience. Nobody bought it. Well, almost. It was too ugly. People didn't, but it was built from the inside. So from the seat to make comfortable drives, everything. And the quality, it seems it was amazing. So they find the best vendors for make not the car too much affordable, but the quality. At the end, nobody bought it. So what we are saying is you might face that as well, but or and perhaps you don't need to expect to wait for 4 or 5 years to get that information, or 6 or 7 years. Sometimes what we are saying with Agile is whatever you learn, yeah, you go to the knowledge body and then you go to the change advisory board. Make everybody learn with that, and don't go there. Improve by learning with each other's.
I,
Share.
I have one more tip for the audience, and that's if you're an agile coach, uh, get in touch with procurement people. Invite your lawyer. Those are usually very nice people. Everybody has like fears and thinks, oh, they must be monsters because they are so rude or whatever. No, they are really nice people. They don't like to be at the end of the chain. You always under pressure in the last second, to do something. So invite them, talk about agile. And if you're a procurement or a salesperson, get in touch with agile guys. Because they have a lot of practices to share and could improve your processes already tomorrow, right? And my experience is if you come to the moment where you have a strategic sourcing case, um, that usually it's driven by a milestone or a regulatory change or something that made it impossible to work the old way of sourcing, traditional way of sourcing. Uh, this is a great opportunity to spread agile mindset throughout the organization. Because if we have leadership on board, procurement is always strategic. We have procurement on board. We have business because we need a product owner, right? And sponsor and so on. We have all the other skills in this biz, DevOps, whatever team. We include the internal and external stakeholders. This could become like a lighthouse project that could drive, or if you haven't yet, if you don't have an agile transformation yet, that could become a kickstart for your agile transformation. So just as from experience, it could become much more than improving the sourcing, right? Yeah.
Mirko, I was making a question, but I don't need to because you just gave the answer, and it's a really good advice. And I was happy to see some references in your speech about the collaboration between different departments. And because this is not just an IT thing, so it just spread to all the departments, and being a little more commercial now. Until the end of the year, you can attend not the Agile Procurement course with us, but also the Agile in Sales and also the Agility in HR course. So it's a spread to all the departments. Thank you so much. I think we have no more questions, but feel free to ask any other questions, or you can also send us your questions after this webinar. We are sending to all our attendees a white paper about Lean-Agile Procurement. And so, Mirko and Hugo, do you want to say anything else before
I would just like if Mirko can say to the audience which companies are starting Lean Agile Procurement journey, which ones are already started, if you can share with us, So because for
Right.
some of them will be nice to know, is my business sector already taking care of this? So perhaps if you say, oh, banking, insurance, which companies in Switzerland or around the world, which ones are already starting, Mirko?
Yeah, so I mean, we started small, and the movement was and is still very fresh, but big brands bought into that. So in the meanwhile, we got almost any industry. So we have not just in Switzerland, by the way, we have banks, insurances. Most of them are on the NDA, so I can't name them, but publicly available is, for example, also totally different sector like Gazprom in the oil and gas sector, Air France, BNP Paribas is a, but then also public sector. We have people in the supporting the British government during Brexit, right? The Auckland Council did now, I think, the 5th or 6th case applying Lean-Agile Procurement to the public sourcing. How cool is that? We have energy companies in Australia, in the US. So all over, unless it's still very fresh, the movement, there is no reason for, I mean, that there are obvious cases like looking for professional services. I mean, that is just where we are coming from, looking for people, but more and more in areas we never thought at. So, for example, one of the biggest brewery company used Lean-Agile Procurement in sourcing new facility management services. I said, hey, this is not complex. And said, yes, it is, because we want to replace the suppliers all over the world, more than 1,000 locations, all at the same time. So we have an organizational complexity, stakeholder complexity, and they were looking for new approaches. So yeah, quite amazing to follow the movement and all the cases, the upcoming cases. I'm working currently in manufacturing, another huge industry. So not just services, also goods, process improvements in manufacturing and production, then in chemistry, health sector. So yeah, all over basically. Telco, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Mirko, for being here with us today. It's a rainy day, a storm. It's here in Lisbon. I don't know in your end how is the weather, but here it's quite heavy. So for now, it's time to return home. I wish everyone a good end of the day and a lovely week, and hope to see you at our course, Competitive Advantage via Lean-Agile Procurement. Hand over to Paula, and on my side, thank you so much for listening to us, and we will be back soon with more webinars and more topics. And if you want to suggest or recommend any other webinar, Mirko and I, or talk to your company or talk with your leaders, please just talk to Paula, and we're more than happy to support whatever you need, not to convince others, but at least to collaborate to understand what is the goal of Lean-Agile Procurement. So Paula, hand to you. Thank you so much for this invitation.
Yes, thank you, Hugo. Thank you, Mirko, and thank you all that have accepted our invitation to be here today. So if you have any question, you can write us to info@agile21.com or call us. Tomorrow you will receive a feedback form. If you want to fulfill it and send it back to us, we will appreciate. So Agile, it's about feedback, as you know. So thank you so much. Give us suggestions for the next webinar. Who knows? We can do the theme that you suggested. So thank you so much. See you soon in our next webinar. Thank you.
Bye guys. Thanks for having me.
Bye bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye bye. Bye bye.